over time I started thinking, you know, that old hog head, different people did it different ways now, and some people cleaned it better than others. I've seen some old timers take that old head and throw it in there and start boiling it. And,
teeth and all.
oh, yeah, it looked bad. Deer neck that I trimmed and cleaned yesterday, and this meat is basically deer shoulder, maybe a few other parts. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna pull all that off that bone. Of course, it ain't beef broth, that's venison broth, huh, Mama?
Yeah.
Think that's enough to start with?
Hi everybody, welcome back to Louisiana Homestead.
Well, good morning everybody. We finally getting to this. If you watched one of our last videos, we told you we're gonna try to do a hog head cheese without the hog and without the head. Well, we're finally getting to it. We were supposed to get to it yesterday, but we had a little delay in some of our plans. So I'm gonna get this pot lit, and then Miss Kay will tell you why Miss KK, she'll tell you how come we had a little delay. That's homesteading, and we'll kind of tell y'all what we're gonna do with this hog head cheese without the hog and without the head.
Well, we got delayed because the cow had her calf. And we had to get our milking supplies together, and we had to make sure she was milked, and we had to tend to her. So that did take up a good bit of our time, and we had to delay our hog head cheese without the hog and without the head video. But we're getting to it today. Well, y'all might have noticed our fire didn't look quite right when we lit that burner, and I'll tell you why. Mr. E investigated it, and there was a dirt dauber nest inside of the burner, and he's having to remove that now. The dirt dauber nest was inside of this area of the burner, so he has chiseled it out with a little screwdriver or something like that, and now he's going to remove the rest of it before we continue. That looks better already.
I'm not an expert on anything. I'm a jack of all trades, but about the only thing I'm an expert on is electrical. But all this other stuff, I just learn as I go. I think we got something here now.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it and looks like it's performing
Well,
correctly.
when you don't do something for a little while, you forget about how it's supposed to work. Just like with our milking stuff, we hadn't done it in a little while, but
it took us a little while to get our milking stuff together too yesterday, because we hadn't done that in a while either. So we had to get together the jars and the milker and make a dip for the teat and get a balm or a lotion like for the bag, and have a place to see it, have a place to contain her where she can't move around too much. So by the time it took us a good 30 minutes, I would say, just to get all those things together. But since we have all of our stuff together, today is going to go a lot easier is what I am assuming, because we have all of our stuff. We know what we're going to do. Also, the cow knows what we're going to be doing to her. Yesterday, she wasn't quite sure what was going on. She wanted to see her calf. She was worried that while we had her pinned up, maybe we was going to do something with her calf, I think. But we got the calf pinned up in front of her where she could see the calf and that nothing was happening to it. And we fed her, and she was more relaxed then. We was able to get a gallon of milk out of her. And hopefully today we can do that same thing, and it'll go a lot easier for us.
So years ago, when I was growing up, when people would butcher a hog, they would, not to waste anything, they would take the head, best I can remember, and they would boil it, the hog head, and they would boil it and scrape all of that meat off of that head, and they'd make what they called hog head cheese with it. What it is, the cartilage and the fat and the collagen and stuff from that head and the bones. They would put it in. They would pull all the meat off, boil it, cook it, pull all the meat off of it, and season it. And sometimes they grind it. Some people did different things. Different people made hog head cheese several different ways.
Yeah.
But it all amounted to getting this meat off of there and boiling it, getting the meat off, seasoning it, and putting it in the ice box, and it would congeal.
Yeah, and I think it would congeal because of the bones and cartilage that was boiled all together.
Right.
That would make it congeal. But
Right.
we're not using the head and the bones and all that today. So we're going to be using some Certo. Let's get a shot of that. We're going to be using some of that to make ours congeal. But anyway.
The thing is, I've even made some of that hog head cheese years ago. You boil the head, pull that meat off, and mix it with a little bit of that broth and some seasoning, and you'd put it in different containers, whatever you wanted to use, and put it in an ice box, and it would congeal. And you could cut it after it would congeal, and you could cut it like a little loaf, like that's why they call it cheese. You know, like the consistency of a cheese type, like a gelatin type thing. And it made some of the best sandwiches in the world. But here's the deal. Over time, and I've even made it, and I can still remember what they taste like. By the way, I believe this is what made the distinction. You mix that meat with all your seasoning and green onions, and it made a heck of a sandwich. But
Yeah.
as I grew up and learned some things, over time I started thinking, you know, that old hog head, different people did it different ways now, and some people cleaned it better than others. I've seen some old timers take that old head and throw it in there and start boiling it, and
Teeth and all.
oh yeah, it looked bad. You can look it up on YouTube. I believe you'll see some of that. That old head, you know, you start thinking, you got them old teeth up in there.
Those snotty nose.
And that's right. You open up that pot, and that old hog head to be staring up at you, boiling, and you start thinking, man, they got the boogers and everything up in that old nose. I don't know how you get all that. Then I started thinking, they got earwax up in them ears, and I don't even remember if some of them people took the brains out of that hog head or not, or even if that's part of what made it congeal. But you know, I went to thinking, that ain't too appetizing. Let's try something different. But I do remember people, if they just had one hog head, they want to make a bigger batch of head cheese to make some good sandwich meat, or put it on crackers. People like to eat them on a saltine cracker.
Mm-hmm.
They would take, I can remember they used to take a Boston butt and mix with that.
Yep.
So I started thinking a few years ago, I said, man, I can make a cleaner, prettier head cheese. And I took some, I figured, well, what you gonna do to make it congeal? So I took some deer neck, a whole deer neck, bone and all, and it's got a lot of cartilage and stuff. I said, that'll probably work pretty good. And I did it. I boiled it and I pulled all that meat off. And I think I did that a couple of times in a row, 2 years in a row. The first year, I think it actually congealed pretty good, but I wanted it to congeal a little better like I remembered it with the hog head cheese. So last year I did it, and I figured maybe I needed to put more of that broth in there that I boiled it in. Yeah. And I made it got a little bit, how you want to explain that, Mama? Maybe a little bit watery. Soupy. Soupy, I don't know. It did real good. But just like the deer sausage, nobody complained it was delicious. So this year, we're going to do the same thing. I figured we ain't going to put that old nasty snout up in there. And some people don't eat pork anyway. So you can enjoy the hog head cheese without the pork, without the head, with some good old kosher deer meat. So I did that yesterday before we tended to that mama cow. I had the meat ready, but we got deterred.
Yeah.
So
we had to put our project on hold till today.
I got a little blood filtered in there. I'm gonna drain all that out before I get that boiling, but because it's set in the ice box. So
it's deer meat. I see you've got a deer neck. What's this other deer meat from?
I got a deer neck that I trimmed and cleaned yesterday, and this meat is basically deer shoulder, maybe a few other parts. That came from some deer meat that my son had from last year, And so I unwrapped that, and if there was any freezer burn or anything, I trimmed all that off. But this is basically what I would make my deer ground meat with. So we're gonna put that in there in a little while, and we're gonna boil that. I'm gonna put the neck in and boil it first. Then I'll add this meat in later. And because it'll take longer for the neck to boil and get tender, and I'm gonna pull all that meat off, and then we're gonna season it, and we're gonna make our own version of hog head cheese without the hog and without the head. And we'll get back with y'all on the end of this, on us putting the seasoning in it after we get it boiled. In other words, we'll get back with y'all. Because you don't want to have to watch all that, because it's going to take several hours, and I'm not going to know how long to tell you that it's going to take. It's just going to be whenever that meat gets tender and starts coming completely off that bone, and we're going to pull it all off that bone.
And hopefully we'll remember to tell y'all how long it did take us.
And when you are boiling it, any little, I don't know what you want to call it, impurities, blood, all that kind of stuff is kind of going to come to the top.
Like in a foam.
Like in a foam. It's not going to be appetizing looking. It's not going to be pretty, but neither is boiling old hog head, But I'm going to skim all that off, and we're going to have some good clean broth. It's going to get all the blood and everything out, and it's going to make a heck of a sandwich. But what I did want to mention, it's going to make a heck of a sandwich as long as we don't burn it or oversalt it, is this year I seen a man on YouTube. His YouTube channel is called Stale Cracker. He's from Louisiana, but you talk about a character there. He's a comedian. But just to let you know, I mean, I'm doing this with deer meat. He made what he called turkey cheese. He took a whole turkey and did this with, pulled it all off the bone, and he wanted it to get that consistency or that gel. So he used Surto, which is nothing more than fruit pectin. That's what you use to make jams and jellies. That's what makes it set, I believe they call it. So I've never used it before when I made mine. I've made 2 different batches of this deer neck cheese, and it did really well. But we're just going to try to get a better consistency, maybe where we can slice it. And I'm going to use this, and we'll show you what we're going to do with it. I don't really know what I'm doing with it, but we're going to see what it does. We're going to use it and see if we can get this stuff to gel. And if it don't gel, it don't matter. It's still going to be good.
Yes. Okay. See you on the flip side. You got a lot of work to do, Mr. E. Ooh, that's just boiling down.
Because this deer neck going to take a while. That's some tough stuff. My glass is fogging up. That's all going to cook off the bone after a while, people.
Okay, so what's your progress in here while your meat's boiling?
Well, I got my onions cut up, Mama. My green onions. Some people call that shallots. They got so many different types of green onions and shallots. I don't know what brand this is, but that's the ones we grew. Yeah, they pretty.
Smell good too.
Good. So we had this meat boiling, that deer neck, for about 4 hours. I took it out 15 minutes ago. You might still see some steam. I don't know if the camera's picking that up. But we boiled it for about 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours. I wanted to get it till that meat was falling off the bone, off of this neck. You can see it's coming off that bone pretty good. You see that? Mm-hmm. So we're gonna pull all that off that bone, and we're gonna put layers of meat in here, and I'm gonna season it with pepper. I'm not gonna put a whole lot of salt my first go around with this, because I boiled this with some salt in my water. So we're gonna put a layer of meat, put a little seasoning, which is gonna be some black pepper, some red pepper. Salt's gonna come later when we check the taste of it. Some garlic powder, onion powder, and some green onions. We're gonna do like we planned, and we're gonna get some of that stock from what we was boiling that meat in while that's cooling off for a minute, and we'll get it simmering with some Surto. Maybe we'll get this stuff to gel a little better. Speaking of gelling, we dug out, I think we had one more pack left from last year. We might have had another pack or 2, I'm not sure. But this is our deer neck cheese, we call it, made from deer neck, just like we're doing now, with no Surto, no nothing. And you can see the consistency, so it did real well. And we froze that, and we still eating it. This here is delicious. It's awesome. Good on crackers, or you take you some bread and put some mayo on there. Makes a heck of a sandwich. So that's what the finished product looks like. And we hoping this time with that Serto, we can cut it even better than what we got right here. You see, where it'll cut a little better. But let's get some stock, Miss KK. This is what we boiled it in. Some good, kind of like beef broth. Look at there. Of course, it ain't beef broth. That's venison broth, huh, Mama? Yeah. Think that's enough to start with? I'm gonna put that in there. What I'm gonna do is anything in here I don't like, glands or discoloration, I'm gonna try to get all that off. And they got some glands and stuff, but we're gonna take our time and we're only gonna put the good, clean, pretty stuff in there. There's a version of this. I think this meat, some people, I don't know if Hog Head Cheese was something that was just this area, or I mean just a Louisiana thing, or if they call it that in other parts of the country. But yeah, but I know that this type of meat, I've looked it up or seen something on YouTube, they call it S-O-U-S-E, M-O-U-S-E. S-O-U-S-E, I think it's pronounced souse, the souse meat, the way you prepare it, boiling it and putting seasoning and letting it congeal. But there's, give a little shout out to the Holler Homestead. Who is that with Ben and Meg Holler? Yeah. Y'all look up Holler Homestead. Meg does a good version of this. It's kind of a spinoff of this, I believe. They call it Scrapple. They pretty much do the same thing. I think they did theirs with pork, but they mix a little cornmeal in there, I believe, and then she cooks all that and lets that cornstarch and all help it to congeal. But y'all can look that up, Holler Homestead, and they do a version of this and they call it Scrapple.
Okay, I'm gonna go fix your pans for you, and I'll be back in a minute.
All right. Well, the stock came to a boil, and if you was making jelly or jam and wanted it to set or congeal, this says to take your jam or jelly, in this case we're going to call it the stock, boil it, remove it from heat, and stir in your Serto. And there's no fixed amount for this. So what I got in there, about 2 pints of water, maybe not even that much. I'm going to put a half a thing of Serto for starters. Well, this meat been boiling for 3.5 to 4 hours, so it's cooked all the way through. I had a little salt in that water, and I tasted it, and it almost has enough salt, but not quite enough. So I feel comfortable putting a little bit. You see, that's what I do when I season stuff like this, like when I make sausage too. I'll make a little layer of meat like this, where I can kind of judge how much. I ain't gonna put too much salt because I already got some. I'll taste it again later, where I can kind of judge how much I need. This is black pepper, and we eat plenty of pepper here. So this is Zatarain's. We like it better because it really is. It's peppy like we like. Our red pepper in here, Mama. 1 layer of meat. Look at there. Make it red. We're gonna sprinkle a little bit of this in there. That way, when we pass this in the grinder, all that stuff will get all mixed up. Same thing we do for sausage. And that red pepper is about to make me sneeze, Mama. You might have to edit that out. This is onion powder. And
cucumber.
Cucumber. I don't know. She said you're supposed to say cucumber to keep you from sneezing. I didn't sneeze. Here's garlic powder. Boy, she's interrupting me, y'all, and I can't remember what I did. So if it don't taste right, we know who to blame. I know it. All right, here we go. We're going to put some more meat in there. I already cleaned all this meat off and got all the sinews and all that stuff out of there.
Anything questions?
All right, I got me another little layer. But here we go. We're going to put some green onions on there. We're going to put some black pepper. How much, Mama? Tell me when.
When?
When what? When to stop?
Yes.
Okay. Put a little red pepper. Oh, doggone it. What y'all think? All right, we'll put a little onion powder. Okay, are you gonna sneeze, Mama? She's using my microphone because hers isn't charged up. What you want to say, Mama?
I want to say whenever there would be something real peppered at home, my daddy would ask my mama what happened, and she'd say she stomped her toe, and that's how all that pepper got in the pot.
Y'all didn't know it was all this big old process to making hog head cheese or making sausage. This is kind of the process we go through to making sausage, except we didn't boil anything. All right, we're gonna go with a little salt on this layer. Put some red pepper. We'll put some black pepper. I like that black pepper. Garlic powder. Onion powder. Green onions. Now, she's laughing at me. I don't have a big layer here. This what's left.
I was just thinking if you did like steel crack or something would go fine in a minute.
We are, y'all got to bear with us. We tired. We had this stuff boiling for 4 hours, and in the middle of all that, we had to go milk the cow. That was the second day we did that. We just don't ever stop. We usually take a nap. And today we didn't get our nap. We had to work all the way through so we could get this done. All right. This next layer wasn't as much meat, so I ain't putting as much seasoning. And like I said, we just want to make sure we don't over salt it, because it's going to mix all those seasonings up, just like we do whenever we make sausage. All right, we're ready for the grinder now. Okay. Let's see what happens. You know, this meat is more dry than what I was anticipating. We may end up having to make some more stock and circle, but we'll see. See the consistency of it? We want it. Show them, Mama. We want it kind of wet, you know.
You know, I'm glad we milked that cow when we did, because that weather is changing and it looks like it's about to start raining again.
I don't know. Them people that told us climate's changing and they can tell what it's going to be like in 2030 and 2040 and 2050 and what the climate's doing. I don't know. Seems like they have a hard time telling us what the weather's going to do just the next day.
That's a good point.
Yep.
How's it going? Oh, yeah. Those filling up.
Good. I got a feeling that we're going to need some more stock in here to get this.
Yeah, you want it to be juicy. You don't want it to be dry.
It's got to be wet so it'll set up.
Do what you want it to do.
Now I did taste a little bit of it earlier, and I find that with ground meat all the time, even though this is boiled ground meat basically. I find that it's real good, but it's hard to get enough salt in there. I don't know why when you grind meat, but
maybe put some salt in.
I'm gonna put some salt,
and then when you mix your stock in, it'll go more evenly. I don't know, a couple of.
Well, I just read that this thing makes about 5 pounds of jelly, so I got way more than 5 pounds of meat.
That's right.
Oh yeah, this is a lot better.
Potato masher to the rescue.
Y'all see? It's starting to look like last year's. Same stuff.
Yep.
Boy, talk about make a saltine cracker taste good. I'm telling y'all, I even took some of that last year and put a little olive oil in a black skillet, cast iron skillet, and kind of smashed it together and made a little patty with it and kind of fried it, a little breakfast patty. Talk about good. Didn't have to fry it. I mean, it's already cooked, but it was good. I gotta taste this. I think my salt's good, but oh Lordy. Mama. Ooh, mama. I ain't kidding. Wow. We might have did something here. You gotta taste this.
I don't want to taste none
Please.
right
This is good. You sure? I'm telling you, I
now.
think
Okay. Oh my gosh. The green onions is the star of the show.
Oh, ain't it good?
Yeah, the more of them too.
How about any of
The
this?
whole 9 yards. Go for it.
Huh?
Yeah. Just re-season the whole thing.
That ain't much, because I'm just
be
putting
careful with the salt when you
Well,
put it.
I'm putting this on the top.
I know.
You know, so this is like, it's kind of like the ocean. You see that ocean? That's just the top of it. They don't there's a lot more water underneath. So
Yeah.
I'm just seasoning the top of this. So really, that's not a whole lot of seasoning when it mixes in with all the rest of that water underneath it.
Yeah. Good point.
Oh, I don't like nothing too salty. All right, what you think now? Oh yeah, green onion, she said. Miss K points, make me do everything. She points at it. She's like, put them green onions in there, boy. That's enough?
Probably.
We can put them all if you want to. We're gonna mix this up. And we're gonna scoop it out in them pans and mold it or do whatever. We can eat it just like this. That stuff's good. Hey, y'all ain't got some more of that deer neck cheese?